when I go, don't cry for me, 'cause in my Father's arms I'll be. The wounds this world left on my soul will all be healed, and I'll be whole. The sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face. And I will not be ashamed, for my Savior knows my name. It don't matter where you bury me, 'cause I'll be home and I'll be free. And it don't matter where I lay, 'cause all my tears be washed away. Gold and silver blind the eye, temporary riches lie. Come and eat from heaven's store, come and drink and thirst no more. So weep not for me, my friend, when my time below does end. For my life belongs to Him who will raise the dead again. And it don't matter where you bury me, 'cause I'll be home and I'll be free. And it don't matter where I lay, 'cause all my tears be washed away. And it don't matter where you bury me, oh, because I'll be home and I'll be free. And it don't matter where I lay, because all my tears be washed away. It don't matter.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this online Good Friday service. The service will follow what is called a Tenebrae model, meaning it will be a service of shadows. The screen will become darker throughout the service, with a candle being extinguished after each of the 7 readings. It may also grow darker on an emotional level as we experience the encroaching proximity to the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth. And yet, this is Good Friday. We mourn and we also celebrate because apart from this great act of God, there would certainly be no resurrection. Crucifixion is necessary for the plan of God to unfold and come to fruition. Death, pain, suffering, brokenness. These are all woven into the story of humanity and therefore the story of God. The crucifixion is not a desperate reaction by God in response to sin. Rather, crucifixion is a precise and necessary component of the story of God, unfolding right before us in the middle of human history. Good Friday is good, and it is important for Christians to remember. We do not disregard the crucifixion because of the resurrection. Instead, we celebrate and embrace the crucifixion because of the resurrection. They are both indispensable components for our faith, each holding the other's hand, wooing us to embrace every part of the story, the telling, the journey, even the parts we'd prefer to leave behind. At a time when we may personally, civically, and globally wish to abandon our current situation for one that promises less fear and doubt, we are reminded by the specter and grandeur of this most subtly auspicious of Fridays that all things must have their time and place if we are to be whole. It is Good Friday, and Easter Sunday means little without it. Tonight we will walk our way through the events leading up to and including the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth through stories from the Gospel of Matthew. Each reading will conclude with a call and a response. Our response will be clearly labeled on the screen. At the end of each reading, the reader will conclude with, "God showed his love for us in this," and we will respond, "Christ died for us." After each of the 7 readings, a candle will be extinguished and the screen will become darker until we end with the death of Jesus and complete darkness. When the service is finished, please take a moment to sit in the silence. This is Good Friday.
You set us up above all the stars. You set us on a high place by where you are. And while we were dead, you made us your friends and scattered our dead upon the winds. Glory to one, God's murdered son, who paid for my resurrection. Once from the dust, once from the grave, daughters and sons from the ashes you raised, and hidden our faults even from your own face, and scattered our dead upon the waves. And glory to one, God's murdered son, who paid for my resurrection. And glory to one, God's murdered son, who paid for my resurrection. Glory to the one who overcame in death. Glory to the one who paid for my offenses. Glory to the one. Glory to the one. Once from the dust, once from the grave, daughters and sons from the ashes you raised, and hidden our faults even from your own face, and scattered our dead upon the waves. You scattered our dead upon the waves.
The shadow of betrayal, Matthew 26, verses 14 through 16 and 20 through 25. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him one after the other, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord." Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him, but woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi." Jesus answered, "You have said so." God showed his love for us in this:
The shadow of bread and wine. Matthew 26:26-30. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. God showed his love for us in this:
Wine and bread. Hear the picture of your love for us. Hear the symbols of our covenant. You suffered, you bled. A broken body given up for love. A perfect life to take away our shame. And only you could make a way. Only you could intervene. Only you could call us home. Only you could make us clean. Death undone. Transformation of our broken lives into stories of your victory. You make us one, born together of your sacrifice, made a family of sacred blood. And only you could make a way. Only you could intervene. Only you could call us home. Only you could make us clean.
The shadow of agony and arrest. Matthew 26, 31 through 56. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you've come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. You will all fall away. God showed his love for us in this.
The shadow of denial. Matthew 26, 57 through 58, and 69 through 75. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him, and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath, "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. You were with that Nazarene, Jesus. God showed his love for us in this.
The shadow of accusation. Matthew 27, 1 through 2, 11 through 14, and 20 through 26. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people made their plans how to have Jesus executed. So they bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief of priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. God showed his love for us in this.
The shadow of the crucifixion, Matthew 27:27 through 43. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him: "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 rebels were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, the rebels who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. God showed his love for us in this:
Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken me? Oh God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken me? My God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken me? My God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken. My God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken me? My God, have you forsaken me? Forsaken me? Forsaken me?
The shadow of death. Matthew chapter 27, verses 45 to 51 and 54. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, He's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff,
and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." God showed his love for us in this: